The mysterious signal. The quiet hum of the starship's engines reverberated through the control room, a steady rhythm that had become a constant companion to Commander Adrian Hunt. The cold, metal walls of the spacecraft reflected the dim glow of control panels and the low buzz of electronic systems at work. For most of the crew aboard the Excalibur, this was just another routine mission. But for Adrian, it was the first time in years that something felt different. It wasn't the familiar stars in the void or the infinite expanse of space outside the windows. No, it was something else, something that had come from the deepest corners of the universe. A strange signal, one unlike any human-made transmission, had reached them just days earlier. It wasn't particularly powerful, but its frequency was unlike anything Adrian's team had ever encountered. It pulsed with a strange rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. The language, unrecognizable. It didn't sound like any known alien dialect, far too complex and layered for that. The mystery behind it was what had pulled them away from their normal patrol route to the edge of the Vaxar system, a remote area in the farthest stretches of known space. Adrian sat in his chair, staring at the holographic readout of the signal. He had already ordered the crew to analyze every detail, every possible data point, yet nothing seemed to make sense. The alien message was sophisticated, and at the same time, it was fragmented, as if it had been recorded, stored, and transmitted across time and space. It was clear that whoever, or whatever, sent this message was attempting to communicate. "Adrian, come take a look at this," called Lieutenant Nadia Reyes from across the room. She was hunched over a different console, her fingers flying over the holographic controls. Her face, usually calm and composed, now showed a hint of tension. "You need to see this." Adrian walked over, his boots clicking softly on the metallic floor. Nadia's hands trembled slightly as she swiped through the data. A new wave of the signal had just been received. "I've enhanced the audio," she said, hitting a few more buttons. "Listen to this." The room fell silent as the transmission played. At first, it was just static, white noise, then something more recognizable. A faint melodic hum began to emerge, followed by a series of short bursts that sounded almost like distorted words. "Children of stars, bring you our fate." The voice was fragmented, soft yet oddly compelling. It wasn't like any other alien communication they'd intercepted before. There was no harshness, no urgency in the tone. Instead, it had a calm, even pace, as though the speaker was inviting them to listen, to understand. There was something ancient about it, something that suggested the message had traveled far beyond the bounds of known space. Adrian's brow furrowed. He knew that humanity was far from alone in the universe. Over the years, Earth had made contact with several alien species, some cooperative, others hostile. But this felt different. There was no aggression in the signal. It wasn't a warning. It was an invitation, an offering to understand something that had been lost to time. "Where is this coming from?" Adrian asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The thought of first contact with a new civilization had always intrigued him, but now, as the signal seemed to grow more clear, a sense of dread slowly began to creep in. The words were familiar, but the context, that was something else entirely. Nadia looked up from her console. The coordinates place it just outside the edge of the Vaxar system. It's a small, uninhabited planet in a system that hasn't been mapped in over a century. If there's anything there, we're the first ones to find it. The crew stared at the holographic map of the region, showing the small planet that lay in isolation at the very edge of known space. It was a barren world, with no signs of life. But the signal persisted. It seemed to emanate from deep within its atmosphere, or perhaps even beneath its surface. "Set a course for the planet," Adrian ordered, his voice steady but filled with a new urgency. The moment had arrived. The opportunity to uncover a long-lost secret, to answer a question that had lingered in humanity's mind for generations. Who were we, really, in the grand scheme of the cosmos? The starship's engines hummed louder as it slowly adjusted course. The crew scrambled to prepare for the journey ahead. Adrian couldn't shake the feeling that this was no ordinary discovery. This could be the key to unlocking a chapter of human history they didn't even know existed. As the Excalibur drifted closer to the unknown planet, the transmission continued to pulse in the background, growing slightly stronger, like the beat of a drum heralding something ancient, something that had been waiting for humanity to find it. Whatever it was, whatever this message was trying to convey, it was clear that it had been sent for a reason. Adrian turned to Nadia. "Keep monitoring the signal. We're going to need everything we can get." She nodded, fingers already tapping at the console. "Aye, Commander." The crew braced for what lay ahead, a sense of anticipation growing with each passing minute. No one spoke much, each person lost in their thoughts. The ship passed through the shimmering fields of the Vaxar system, approaching the cold, desolate world that had been the source of their mysterious visitor's message. And then, suddenly, the transmission changed. It was no longer a simple series of broken words and static. It was a full sentence, clear and precise, like a voice from the past had finally found its way through the void. "Children of the stars, you are the ones we have been waiting for." The words sent a chill down Adrian's spine. The reality of what they were about to face began to settle in. They weren't just exploring an uncharted planet. They were on the brink of discovering something monumental. As the ship neared the planet, all eyes were on the control panels, awaiting the next signal, the next step in what was shaping up to be the most significant moment in human history. Whatever awaited them on that barren world, they knew one thing for certain. The story of humanity was about to change forever. The echoes of an ancient past. The Excalibur continued its journey through the cold void, its sleek hull cutting through space as though it was destined for this moment. The planet loomed ahead, distant and silent, shrouded in the dust of countless millennia. The crew stood at their posts, eyes fixed on their tasks, but there was a palpable sense of unease in the air. No one spoke. The hum of the ship's engines was the only sound that filled the silence, a stark contrast to the intense anticipation that weighed heavily on their shoulders. Commander Adrian Hunt stood at the center of the command deck, his mind racing with thoughts of the unknown. The transmission had grown increasingly clearer, and its message, more inviting than threatening, had left him with more questions than answers. Who were these children of the stars, and why had they chosen this moment to reach out? Why had they waited so long, across eons of time, to contact humanity? His thoughts were interrupted as the holographic display blinked to life. Nadia Reyes, the ship's communications officer, was the first to break the silence. Her expression was focused, but there was a hint of wonder in her eyes. "Commander, I've just isolated another part of the signal. This one, it's different. It's not like the others." Adrian stepped forward, narrowing his gaze at the console. The transmission continued to pulse in rhythmic patterns, but now there was a distinct change. A series of high-pitched tones resonated through the speakers, followed by a clear voice, one that sounded almost human, but not quite. The words, though still distorted, seemed to echo with an ancient resonance. "We have watched you grow. The time is now. You must come to the heart." The voice faded, replaced once again by the eerie silence that had marked the entire transmission. There was something profoundly unsettling about the message. It wasn't just an invitation. It was a command, a beckoning to a place unknown. The words "the heart" were repeated several times in the transmission, but what they referred to, no one could say. Adrian turned to Nadia, his brow furrowed. "Did you catch that last part? What is the heart they're referring to?" "I'm still trying to decode it, but it's clear they want us to go to the planet's surface," Nadia replied, her fingers moving quickly over the console. "I've traced the signal's origin point. It's coming from somewhere beneath the surface, deep within the planet." Adrian's thoughts raced. Beneath the surface. Could it be a city? A base? Some kind of ancient structure? "Perhaps," Nadia said, her voice low with intrigue. "Or maybe it's something older, The planet doesn't have any signs of life, at least not on the surface. But what if they've been hiding there all this time, waiting for someone to find them? Adrian nodded, a sense of foreboding settling over him. This was no longer just a simple first contact mission. They were being drawn into something much larger, something that spanned across millennia. Prepare a landing party. We're going down to the surface. The crew moved swiftly, each person carrying out their task with quiet efficiency. The Excalibur made its final approach, the barren planet's surface growing larger on the view screen. The landscape was as desolate as it appeared from space. Mountains of jagged rock, deep craters, and vast, empty plains stretching out in all directions. There was no sign of vegetation, no sign of animal life. It was a dead world, untouched by the passage of time. And yet, beneath it all, there was something waiting, something ancient that called out to them. As the ship descended through the atmosphere, the ship's shields glowing brightly as they broke through layers of thick clouds, Adrian couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. It wasn't just the signal that had changed. It was the way the planet seemed to stir, the way it had responded to their arrival. The very air felt charged with anticipation. Moments later, the Excalibur touched down in a vast clearing near the planet's equator. The landing was smooth, but there was a palpable tension in the air. The crew had gathered in the ship's hangar, preparing for the mission ahead. Adrian stood at the front, dressed in his dark combat suit, his face a mask of determination. Behind him stood Lieutenant Nadia Reyes, who had been selected to join the landing party, along with a small group of elite soldiers and scientists. "We don't know what we're going to find down there," Adrian said, his voice calm but resolute. "But we're here to uncover the truth. Whatever it is, we'll face it together." Nadia nodded, her expression serious. "Understood, Commander. We'll stick to the plan." With that, the hatch to the hangar opened, and the team disembarked. The air on the planet's surface was cold, thin, and dry. The dust kicked up under their boots, and the faintest tremor of an unnatural breeze stirred the barren land. But there was no life. Nothing moved except the occasional flutter of the dust clouds swirling in the wind. The team's footsteps were the only sound as they moved out toward the coordinates that had been transmitted by the alien signal. The landscape, though eerily quiet, had an oppressive weight to it, as if it was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. "Keep your eyes peeled," Adrian instructed, his voice low and focused. "We don't know what kind of defenses, if any, are in place." The team advanced carefully, their sensors scanning the ground for any signs of movement or hidden traps. But nothing emerged. They'd reached the designated coordinates, and all that awaited them was a massive stone structure, half buried in the dirt and dust of the planet's surface. It was a monument, ancient and worn by time, but unmistakably built by intelligent hands. Adrian stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. "This is it," he whispered, staring up at the structure. The heart. The massive entrance was cracked open, as though it had been sealed for centuries, waiting for the right moment to be opened. The crew's collective breath seemed to catch as they stood before it, unsure of what to expect, but knowing that there was no turning back now. Whatever this place was, it held the answers to questions that had haunted humanity for generations. Adrian took a deep breath, steeling himself. "Let's go inside." As they moved through the darkened threshold, the air grew colder, the silence more profound. The walls of the structure were adorned with strange, glowing symbols, their meaning lost to time, but unmistakably part of the ancient culture that had once called this place home. The deeper they ventured, the more the sense of being watched grew. They were not alone. Whatever had left this place behind, whatever intelligence had once thrived here, was still present. And as the team pressed forward into the heart of the structure, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being drawn into the heart of a mystery that would change everything. Secrets beneath the surface. The walls of the ancient structure closed in around them, their flickering lights casting long shadows that danced across the intricate carvings etched into the stone. The air was cold and heavy with the scent of ancient dust, and as Adrian Hunt led his team deeper into the depths of the forgotten monument, the silence seemed to thicken. There was no sound except the soft crunch of boots on the floor, the subtle hiss of their equipment, and the distant hum of the Excalibur's engines still reverberating in the background, as though the ship itself was a heartbeat pulsing in the vast emptiness. The team moved cautiously, their weapons drawn, scanning every corner, every crack in the walls. There was a sense of foreboding here, an oppressive feeling that seemed to grow stronger with each step they took. It was as if the very stones of this place were watching them, waiting for them to uncover its secrets. But they pressed on, driven by the promise of discovery, by the mystery of the signal that had brought them to this dead world. "Commander," Lieutenant Rias's voice broke the silence, her tone a mixture of awe and uncertainty. "Look at this." Adrian turned toward her, his eyes narrowing as she gestured toward a large chamber ahead. The space was vast, the ceiling high enough to make the walls disappear into the shadows, and the floor was covered in strange patterns, etched into the stone, as though to map the very structure of the planet itself. At the center of the room was a large pedestal, its surface smooth and gleaming in the dim light, though covered in the same layer of dust as everything else. Upon it lay a crystalline object, faintly glowing with a soft, pulsating light. "Is that it?" Adrian asked, his voice low, reverent. The glowing crystal was unlike anything he had ever seen. Its shape was irregular, like an elongated teardrop, and it emitted a faint hum, a vibration that resonated through the air, echoing in his chest. It was as if the object itself was alive, breathing in a way that the crew could feel but not explain. "I think so," Nadia replied, her voice hushed as she moved toward the pedestal. "The signal. It's coming from this thing, isn't it? It's resonating at the same frequency." Adrian took a step forward, his instincts screaming at him to be cautious. The relic before them was far older than any human artifact, and yet it felt familiar, as though it held a deeper connection to their species than they could possibly understand. He motioned for the team to stay back as he approached the pedestal, his eyes locked on the crystal. As his fingers brushed the surface of the pedestal, a sudden pulse of energy shot through the room. The lights flickered, and the ground trembled beneath them. The hum from the crystal grew louder, and for a moment, the air seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly energy. The sound reverberated through their bodies, a low thrum that echoed in their bones. "Commander," Nadia shouted, her voice sharp with alarm. "Get away from it." But it was too late. Before Adrian could react, a blinding light erupted from the crystal, filling the chamber with an overwhelming surge of energy. The entire room seemed to collapse inward, as though time itself was folding in on them. The team was knocked off their feet, thrown to the ground by the force of the explosion. Adrian's vision blurred as the light consumed everything, drowning out the world around him in a wave of white-hot brilliance. When the light finally receded, everything was eerily still. Adrian blinked rapidly, trying to clear his vision. He could hear the faint groans of the structure, like the sound of ancient bones creaking in protest, but there was no sign of the blinding light that had engulfed them moments before. Slowly, he pushed himself to his feet, his head spinning. "Is everyone okay?" Adrian called, his voice weak as he tried to steady himself. One by one, the team members responded, each of them visibly shaken but unharmed. Nadia was the first to stand, her face pale, but her eyes sharp with curiosity. What just happened?" Adrian took a deep breath, trying to process the event. The crystal had triggered something powerful and ancient. It was clear now that this place was not just an abandoned structure, but a carefully hidden relic, left behind by a long-lost civilization. But who had built it, and why had they hidden it away? What was the significance of the glowing crystal? "I don't know," Adrian muttered, "but I think we just awakened something. Something important." The team gathered around the pedestal, cautiously inspecting the crystal. It was no longer glowing with the same intensity, but its surface shimmered faintly, as if it were still resonating with the energy that had just been unleashed. Adrian stepped forward once more, his hand hovering above it, unsure of what to do next. "Commander," Nadia said softly, "there's something written here." Adrian turned his attention to the pedestal. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he could make out faint symbols etched into the surface, the grooves barely visible to the naked eye. It wasn't a language he recognized, but there was something about the way the symbols flowed, something almost familiar. "What is it?" Adrian asked, leaning closer to inspect the markings. "It's a form of writing," Nadia replied, her brow furrowed in concentration. "But it's not like any alphabet I've seen before. It's fluid, almost like it's moving as I look at it." Adrian's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the key to unlocking the mystery of the signal. They weren't just uncovering an ancient relic. They were discovering a forgotten history, a long-lost language that had somehow endured across the ages. If they could decipher it, they might understand who had built this place and why. Nadia continued to study the symbols, her eyes narrowing as she focused on them. "It's like the language is being revealed to me. It's almost like it's alive, adapting to my presence." Adrian watched as Nadia's expression shifted from confusion to realization. "Wait," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I think I can make out some of the words. We, guardians, heritage." Her voice trailed off as the symbols continued to shift before her eyes, almost as though the pedestal itself was responding to her touch. Adrian's pulse quickened. This wasn't just a language, it was a message from the past, from a civilization that had vanished long ago, leaving behind only echoes in the form of these symbols and the strange crystal. Suddenly, the pedestal began to hum again, this time in a different tone. The symbols flashed brighter, and a low melodic sound filled the room, vibrating in the air around them. The crystal responded, its surface now glowing faintly as the symbols became clearer, sharper. It was as if they were being translated in real time, as though the pedestal was unlocking its secrets for them. "We are the keepers of the heart," Nadia read aloud, her voice filled with awe. "Guardians of the knowledge lost to time. You have come. You must understand. The fate of all rests with you." Adrian's mind raced. This was it. The signal had been a call, a summons to those who could comprehend it. And now, they had uncovered a message that spoke of guardians, of knowledge that had been hidden for eons. It was no coincidence that they had arrived at this moment in time. Whatever this ancient civilization had left behind, it was now in their hands. But with that realization came the weight of responsibility. They had uncovered something monumental, something that could alter the course of history. What had they unleashed? And what would they find next? As Adrian looked around at his team, their faces filled with the same mixture of wonder and trepidation, he knew one thing for certain. They had only just begun to scratch the surface of the mystery. What lay ahead was unknown, but it was a journey they would have to take, no matter where it led.